Welcome to the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. It's hard to believe 22 years have passed since the referendum on whether Australia should become a republic, but the rejection of the model put forward at the time didn't put the matter to bed forever. Today I wanted to have a closer look at the issue, what went wrong last time, when we might see another referendum, and what a change would mean for Australia and our place in the world. Peter FitzSimons is an author, journalist and the chair of the Australian Republican Movement. Peter, welcome back.
Thank you, Sean. We should declare that you were my former editor-in-chief and you were kind to me in your time at the top of the Herald.
Oh, that's very nice of you. Now, when I've been watching the last couple of weeks, the decision around nuclear submarines, our relations with US, UK, the free trades we're talking about, and then you've got all these reconciliation action plans from businesses, it all to me kind of is about the identity of Australia, which to me is all about the Republican movement. Where's it up to?
Where we're up to is when I did a speech in 2017 when Malcolm Turnbull was addressed as the Republic movement when he was Prime Minister, and it was at Sydney University, and one of the things I said was to honour what I call the winter soldiers, and that was they're the people that kept the Republic movement going in the 2 decades after the 99 referendum, because that I was involved tangentially in that 99 referendum, trying to get sports stars to where, in fact, I did. I got them to sign a declaration of independence, of the desire to play for a free Australia, a liberated Australia, if you like, certainly an independent Australia. And then it was gutting the next 14 or 15 years, getting people involved, making people believe that it could be done again. And I took over in 2015. And I inherited an organisation. The great thing was it was intact. There were chapters, there was a tiny amount of money, and what I devoted my time to, first up, I probably even approached you, Sean, I can't remember, but basically everybody I knew, certainly everybody I'd ever done a speech for, written books about or on or whatever, I just approached them and said, I need your membership, you've got to join up. And we went from about 1,000 members. I think when we audited it, we started to get professional.
Yep.
I got enough money. I raised, in the first instance, about $1 million. And with that, we were able to employ professionals, full-time professionals, get our membership going, start to form the idea of a campaign. I've been doing it now for 6 years, and we're on another fundraising drive to keep this going. And ideally, sometime in the next 3 to 4 years, we will have a referendum put, and probably early in the new year, we will put to the people, this is the model, our considered model of what we think is the best chance to get over the line at a referendum and give Australia a republic government.
Do you think you have the population behind you generally?
Not yet, no. I mean, it's hard yakka.
Yeah.
It is really hard yakka, particularly in the time of the pandemic, to get people to concentrate on it, and not unreasonably so.
Yeah.
I mean, right now there's one topic of conversation, and when I first took over 6 years ago, I have 13 nieces and nephews, and 2 of them are particularly active in political matters, and I approached my two of my nieces and said, look, Uncle Pete here, I'm taking over chair of the Republic movement, I need your help.
Yeah.
And both of these very fine, very active young women said, love you, Uncle Pete, but, you're not in top 5 of things that we are concerned about. And that was very interesting to me. But generally, we have about half the people are for us, want a republic. A quarter of the people want to remain with the monarchy, and a quarter don't care as long as they can keep watching the Kardashian show.
Yep.
And those figures are broad. In recent times, those numbers have gone up a bit in our favour. I mean, there was an outlier one late last year from memory that was down, but then it's come back again. Again, difficult to get a real reading in the time of the pandemic. But yes, we need to engage the people. The events in Great Britain at the moment, well, particularly with the royal family, Prince Andrew is something that comes up in our discussions with people. I mean, right now they're trying to serve a writ on him from the young woman in New York who's taking legal action on him, and he's hiding at Balmoral Castle. And, this is the man who is, I think, 8th in line to succession to be King of Australia. So the whole shtick of the monarchist is that the blood of the royal family is blue. It's better than the blood of the rest of us. So, I always say in speeches, if Australians were to look at the photo of themselves together 2 Christmases ago before the pandemic came, and the 25 of you around the barbecue, and there was Auntie Mary and Uncle Ted and Cousin John, and look at that photo, and then look at the photo of the Queen of England with her family on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, I think last June. Under our colonial constitution, and I use those words advisedly, under our colonial constitution, every one of those people on the balcony with the Queen of England, including Prince Andrew, and including the one that's now, I think now 2 years old, is automatically more qualified to be the Australian head of state than anybody in your family. And your niece, Esmeralda, the highly accomplished Esmeralda, she could, at the age of 25, win the Oscar for Best Actress. She could, by the age of 30, cure cancer. By 35, give us peace in the Middle East. By 40, rid us of Pauline Hanson. She could be the most accomplished Australian, revered Australian that ever lived. But under our colonial constitution, it says Esmeralda need not apply. Why? Because she's an Australian. As an Australian, she is automatically disqualified from being the Australian head of state because that job is reserved for a family of English aristocrats. And when I put it like that to audiences, I can see them move. I can see them stir.
Yeah.
I can see them looking at it going, geez, that's right. And the challenge we've got is to put that before the people to say this is a national embarrassment. We are 121 years, 120 years since Federation. We're 250 odd years since Captain Cook got here. Our people, the First Nations people, have been here for 65,000 years. And yet here we are in the 21st century and we say to the world, we cannot run our own show. We just can't do it. And then people say, they say, I'm sorry to rant, but it's got me going again. People say, well, I don't want to leave the Commonwealth and I still want our athletes to be in the Commonwealth Games. The answer to that is, that's fine. We don't want to leave the Commonwealth either.
Oh, Canada does it?
Yeah, but there's, I think, 55 nations in the Commonwealth, 38 of them, and I think soon 39 with Barbados, are republics.
Yep.
So it's not Malta. They had the CHOGM conference there a few years ago. Malta, again, I think it's been a republic for 37 years and a very successful one. This can be done, but it's one of the historians I spoke to, Benjamin T. Jones. He's been sort of studying the republic movement, and he's a very strong Republican himself in Australia. And one of the lines, I think it was him that told me the line, that the idea of an Australian republic is a solution in search of a problem, and that there is this natural apathy because we're living in the blessed land of Australia and people don't concentrate so much on the indignity of it. But his point to me, this is a bit long-winded, but his point to me was, why do we become a republic? Essentially, it's a matter of dignity. It's a matter of national pride to be seen to run our own show. I mean, when you must know yourself, when you explain to the French, when you explain to English people, well, not English people, they probably understand it better. You explain to Americans that we're a republic. They go, the what? What? And my French friends, I lived in France for 4 years playing rugby, and when I explained to them that, the Queen of England is actually also the Queen of Australia, I mean, they are completely and utterly gobsmacked, and they feel a bit sorry for me. Us.
Yeah. I feel sorry for us too. Stay with me, Peter. We'll be back in a minute. My guest this morning is Peter FitzSimons, author, journalist and chair of the Australian Republican Movement. I just want to ask, when the last referendum, John Howard was against it, the model wasn't liked. If we have a referendum in the next 3 or 4 years, do we need a different government, do you think? Do you think the current government, and how important is the model?
Well, going into, again, so it was just before the last federal election when Bill Shorten was top of the polls, and it was on the 29th of July. So it must have been 2019, I'm thinking. Bill Shorten made a speech to us at the Royal Exhibition Hall in Melbourne, 1,000 people there, and he committed. He said, if elected at the next election, I will put a referendum to the Australian people. So at that point, we had the Prime Minister who would be the Prime Minister most likely, at that point he was the most likely person to take over from Scott Morrison, committing an incoming ALP government to giving us a referendum. And there was huge excitement there. Now, we all got the polls wrong and Scott Morrison became the Prime Minister. Democracy in action, so be it. I've asked Mr Morrison about, where he stands on the Republic, and he said his exact words to me were, "Peter, I am a constitutionalist." And in essence, the position of the constitutionalist is that when Moses came down from the mount, as well as the Ten Commandments, he had the Australian Constitution, and you can't change it. I mean, that's very broadly it. But there are some, and that Constitution is completely antiquated. It is time we had recognition of our First Nations people, that we set ourselves up as a republic, that we moved forward. Where is Anthony Albanese on it? Well, the ALP, in their own charter, they are in favour of a republic. As to the question of timing with things like Uluru, that is to be worked out. Our job, meantime, is to keep the movement going, is to fly the flag, to say we're here, and as I say, within the next few months, we will come out with the model. Now, the problem with coming up with a model, and this has been a real problem, that for me personally, when I took over, it was obvious to me that a minimalist solution was the way. And see, again, a lot of Australians don't really focus on the way the system works at the moment. But the way it works is that you can put it in a tweet. There's an election every 5 years. The elected Prime Minister selects an eminent Australian to be the Governor-General. He or she then writes away to the Queen of England saying, "This is my Governor-General designate, like you to approve." The Queen of England writes back and says, "Okay." So the minimalist solution that I wanted in the past was everything stays the same. We remain the Commonwealth of Australia. We still call the Governor-General, not the President, in the sense that, just to show this is not a big change, there's one change, however, that the elected Prime Minister selects an eminent Australian and then, instead of writing to a lady living in England, writes down to the hall of the Parliament of the People to say, "This is who I would like. I'd like a 2/3 majority of joint session of Parliament to approve my choice as Governor-General," which would mean the authority of the Governor-General would rest on Australian democracy. And for me, that was the best solution. The problem with that is that a huge chunk of the Australian population, and we had a think tank down in Kangaroo Valley a couple of years ago, and David Marr, the great David Marr, made a very impassioned speech to us, the theme of which was, get this into your head. You can go left, you can go right, you can go up, you can go down, you can put bells and whistles on it, but at the end of the day, the only way you're going to get something over the line is if the Australian people have an input into that. And the more we researched it, the more we talked to people, we have broadly agreed with that. There has to be an Australian input into who should be the Governor-General. And people also say, "I don't want a politician. I don't want a politician, or I don't want a politician's republic." Not quite understanding, respectfully, that, the way it works now is it's a politician that selects the Governor-General. The other problem that you've got is from the moment, let's say you, Sean, the unlikely event that you, Sean, decided you wanted to be the President or the Governor-General. From the moment you put your hand up and said, "I'm available," I'm nominated, it quasi makes you a politician because you're putting yourself up for an election. And one of the themes that we've been working through again is I'll leave this for the announcement, but for me, the pool has to be not rigid, but really what we're looking for is eminent Australians. You want people, if you think for me in my lifetime, of the ones that I focused on, Sir William Dean was just an outstanding Governor-General. He embodied somehow the spirit of the Australian people. I always admired on the Swiss, can you remember the Swiss Canyon tragedy?
I think
it must have been late 80s or early 90s. What I remember about that is that Sir William was our Governor-General. The news came that we'd lost 18 Australians in a tragedy in Switzerland overnight. He was on a plane, a RAF jet, within 3 hours, flying to Switzerland. He presided, oversaw the bodies being loaded on the jet. He accompanied the bodies at a time of great Australian national mourning. It was done with such dignity. He embodied the national grief
Yeah.
and the national dignity, and it was so completely and utterly unpolitical. He wasn't representing Liberal voters or ALP voters or Green voters or whoever. He was embodying Australia. And so for me, the point about Sir William is that before he became Governor-General, I don't think many people knew really who he was.
Who he was, yep.
He was well known, but he was precisely the kind of eminent Australian you'd want as our representative.
Well, Peter, look, I'm going to leave it there because we're running out of time, but certainly I'm a huge supporter of you and certainly the Republican movement. I really do wish you well. You've got literally 3 seconds. Are there life in them wallabies now?
Brilliant piece in the Herald last week, Sean, and as a matter of fact, I wrote it. Yes, there is life. The wallabies go on. Thanks very much.
Peter, thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That was Peter FitzSimons, author, journalist and chair of the Australian Republic Movement. This is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. Join me every morning for the full Fear and Greed podcast with all the business news you need to know. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.